a trusted global tech-enabled services partner for governments and citizens. BLS International is amongst the top 3 players globally in its domain. It is a preferred partner for embassies and governments across the world, having an impeccable reputation for setting benchmarks in the domain of visa, passport, consular, e-governance, attestation, biometric and e-visa and retail services. It also provides citizen services to state and provincial governments.
My name is Avinash, and I welcome all of you to another interesting episode of Face-to-Face Corporate Series. In this series, friends, we basically introduce well-managed and emerging companies and help our investors understand their businesses, their growth potential, and basically get a interaction with the senior management teams. And today, friends, we have got a very interesting company by the name of BLS International Ltd. Now, this is a very formidable and a very dominant player in the travel segment. And we have the pleasure of having the senior management team with us. We have the Joint Managing Director, Mr. Shikhar Agarwal, and the CFO, Mr. Amit Sudhakar. Gentlemen, thank you very much for sparing your valuable time and talking to us on this show. Hopefully, I expect that this will be a very productive session and will help us understand your company better. Let's start with the first question. In fact, I would like to understand, from Mr. Shikhar that if you could tell us, how the business journey for this company started. Although the company has been pretty old on the stock markets, if you could tell us how did this business journey start from your side and currently in the market in which you operate, especially the visa processing market, what is the kind of positioning BLS enjoys across India as well as globally? So if you could give some color on that and we can start.
Sure. Thank you, Avinash, for inviting us on this show. So as you know, BLS International is a homegrown company. We are based in Delhi, and we started in the year 2006-07 with one of the foreign Schengen missions in Delhi. And that is, at that time, there was a very basic level of outsourcing that was done in terms, we were operating, we were putting people, manpower, and basic level of systems in the embassy premises itself. And at the same time, the Indian government was also progressing and giving outsourcing of Indian embassies across the world, wherein there was not only the people who wanted to come to India, that visa was a big issue, and also the Indians who were living abroad, they wanted to apply for the consular services like OCI, PIO, passport renewal. That was also big in numbers. So we started, gradually focusing on the Indian government business. And for many years, it was in 14-15, we kind of got a good market share across the world with many Indian embassies outsourced to us. That is how we kind of grew to 20 countries. And then we thought that now we, as an Indian company, we have got a good amount of market share with the Indian government. We started focusing more on foreign government business. We started getting Schengen government contracts. And then in the year 2016, one big breakthrough came with the Spanish government when we got a big Spanish contract globally. So for all the Spanish visas globally. And rest is history. In the last 2-3 years, we've won quite a few contracts with different governments. Currently, we are present in 64 countries and we work with more than 46 client governments globally. And and our global market share is around 15%, and there is amount of growth potential going forward.
Thanks, Shikhar, for the answer. Now, tell me one thing. In this business, we hear that there are not many number of players. Apart from BLS, there are 1 or 2 other companies. Now, specifically, Shikhar, tell us one thing. Why is it that the market is very concentrated with just 2 to 3 players? Is it because entry in this market is very difficult? And the kind of parameters which are required to get new countries and new destination, is it a little more difficult process? So if you could tell us what is exactly the reason only 2 to 3 players exist, and within these 2 to 3 players, how is the market divided, and more importantly what kind of growth does BLS International expect at least for the next say 2 to 3 years? Because already we have seen the FY23 numbers, very strong numbers in terms of revenue, in terms of EBITDA, profit after tax. But in our assessment, from the company's perspective, what do you think is now the company's positioning strategy over the next, say, 2 to 3 years?
See, definitely this industry is quite difficult in terms of, the qualification criteria is very tough. Currently, there are only 3 odd companies globally which qualify for these government contracts. For us, for BLS also, it took many years, around 15 years to get qualified for these government contracts. We started small. So governments are very, very, very sensitive about awarding contracts to any company. So they want to make sure whether you have worked for many governments for X number of years, delivered those services, if you're following all the data protection laws, data security laws, if you are compliant with GDPR norms or different norms. So those are, if you have, what are the SLAs that you've handled, how many applications you have handled, how many countries you are working in. So all those criteria are quite difficult to fulfill. Only 3 companies currently, qualify for these criteria, including ours. So that is why, governments, we are now qualified for all these tenders. There is big potential. There are upwards of $1.5 billion worth of tenders that are coming up for renewal. Some are ongoing, in which we are poised to take a good amount of market share.
Okay, so basically, this business structure of 2 to 3 players is going to continue according to you, because the the criteria norms are pretty tough according to you. So you don't expect any kind of major competition from any new players. Is this thinking right from my side, Shikhar?
Correct. That thinking is correct. We expect that. And also, if you talk about delivery, after winning the contract, these contracts are quite difficult to deliver. So we have, over the last 15 years, learned after winning the contracts how to deliver them consistently year on year, managing all the SLAs, managing all the data security norms, managing all the IT policies. So those are some of the things that are quite different.
Okay. And Shikhar, just to add a little more on this topic, like when you get a new country, kind of acquisition, what are the normal terms and conditions? Are these contracts for a period of say 3 years, 5 years, or have they got to be renewed after every 1 or 2 financial years? So, how does the contract work? Like typically, normally is it for a 2-year, 5-year, or maybe for a longer time frame, depending on how you negotiate, in your deals?
So see, first of all, it is any government, it's like a government tender. When government takes out a tender, it has a mix of technical and commercial parameters that you have to bid at. Typically, the duration of these contracts is 5 to 7 years. In some cases, it's as high as 10 years also. So these are typically longer contracts, because you have to do upfront investment in terms of capex, in terms of software technology, opening of offices. So that is why gestation period is a little longer. So typically, you get a good time period.
Okay. Amitji, sorry for keeping you waiting, but now on the financial side, something to do with what Shikharji mentioned to us. Now, when we talk about 5 to 7 years contracts, so typically, can we assume that every year there is some price increase, or there is a pre-decided kind of contract price under which the company has to operate? So, if you could give us some color on that.
So, see, as Shikhar said, these contracts are global tendered contracts, where what our quotation is basically on the per applications processing charges. So that becomes fixed for over the period of the contract. But you have clauses which take care of your foreign exchange fluctuation. If it is there, you can get a upgrade, and they also cover a little bit on the inflation.
Okay.
But basically, the rates are fixed for the whole period of the contract.
Okay, so in the history of BLS, Amitji, has it ever happened that what contract price you have signed, and maybe after that there has been some cost increase? So in such cases, how many times has BLS encountered this? Because obviously you all are very dominant players in this segment, so you understand the business very well. So I just wanted to know, when you decide the price, what are the factors which you take into consideration? Typically, I believe the main cost would be employee cost or maybe infrastructure cost. So how do you decide on a very broader basis to decide, the price per application when you talk about any new country you sign up?
Sure. So the tender process, in that the biggest 2 things which we take into account is the transactions which have happened over the last 2 years, 3 years period. We see the number of applicants which we expect to come, and the locations where they want us to open the offices. Then we work out the infrastructure cost of those offices. We as a policy have a asset light model. Therefore, we don't invest in the real estate. We take it on rent, and then we work out the refurnishment of the office as per the requirements. And then, as you said, employee becomes the next big expense. We take those into account, and then we work out our basic infrastructure initial investment and what period we will be able to recover that. And thereafter, it will be more of a cash generation thereafter. So normally depends on the size of the contract, whether we can recover our initial cost within 3 to 6 months, or it may take 9 to 10 months, depending on the size of the contract and the initial investment which we are going to do.
Okay, understood. I think Amit ji, at least correct me if I'm wrong, but it means that
Mhm.
if the volume of business grows in terms of volumes, then you are
Mhm.
able to recover the cost much faster, and that makes that destination more profitable to you in a
That's
much shorter time.
That's right. Because at the end of the day, as Avinash said, yeah, our revenue is the number of application which will come and what we are going to earn from them.
Okay. So, Shikharji, now another question which I wanted to ask, I mean, from an analyst point of view, is that, if you could tell us, which are the most profitable kind of destinations for you? If you could just share the names, I mean, we would not share into the numbers, but typically which route is the most profitable for BLS? Because as Amit ji said, more volumes, if they come from a destination, it actually makes more business sense. So currently out of our entire product mix, which are the most, traveled kind of destinations and where BLS actually stands to gain significantly, because that's where the main revenue and profits probably are coming from.
Correct. So see, for us as a company, all our contracts, first of all, are profitable. We only bid for contracts, keeping our minimum margin in mind. So we operate in 64 countries and work with more than 40 plus governments. So all of them are profitable. But if you talk about volumes, if you talk about from India, now, we have seen a big rise in applications for the Thai government, for the Spanish government. We've recently started working for the German government. There has been rise in applications for Italian government or Philippine government. So I think from all these handful of governments, you have seen a good increase in number of applications.
Okay. In fact, now coming to your digital business, Shikharji, if you could tell us, the second piece for your company is the digital business. If you could tell us, what exactly is the scope of coverage, what you do here, and how important it is, from a business standpoint, because obviously the visa business is very profitable and one of the larger contributors to your business. So on the, digital business, if you could tell us, what is the strategy of the company going forward?
Definitely. So see, on the digital business, if you see as percentage of our revenue, 25% comes from digital business. Digital business comprises of our business from the banking correspondent industry, in which we are one of the largest BC of State Bank of India, in which we also acquired a company called Zero Mass in the last financial year. So that is one major part of our digital business. Then another part of our digital business is citizen service work that we do with different governments like the government of UP, Punjab, Karnataka, Rajasthan. Those businesses are also growing at a good pace for us. These are also same government contracts in which people come to us for government services. In the banking correspondent business, we operate as a bank branch on behalf of State Bank of India in tier 2, tier 3, and sometimes even in tier 1 cities. So that business is also, after this acquisition of Zero Mass has become sizable for the company. Going forward, we are looking at multiple contracts with different state governments and also with different banks, PSUs and private banks to expand our revenue and profitability from the digital service business.
So Shikhar, here also, if I were to understand properly, please correct me, that is this business also a tender based driven, like you get a contract after winning a tender and then pricing and the scope of the time frame is also decided in advance. So does the digital business also work on the same lines?
Correct. So all our businesses that we want to enter work on the similar line of monopoly, exclusivity, and government tenders, and which are defined duration.
So, Shikhar, tell me one thing on the digital side, what you mentioned about banking correspondence and other digital services. Now, in terms of the, working capital kind of, cycle, I mean, is it that, whatever you do on the digital side, is it slightly a longer elevated cycle? Because see, on a whole, I was just observing your working capital cycle. It was absolutely a negative working capital cycle. But is it that the visa business, gives you better kind of, cash flows, because it's a prepaid kind of business and then you actually give the service to the customer. So in both the businesses, is the working capital cycle different or is it more or less similar? Because your business generates a lot of cash, because obviously you have negative working capital, and I think in the presentation also, you people have said that we'll be looking at focusing on continuing the negative working capital cycle. So if you could give us some thoughts on this, which will help us understand your company better.
I think I would request Amit to take this question.
Yeah. So see, as you said, all the businesses are negative working capital businesses. So like in Visa, we collect the fees first. In e-governments also, we collect the fees first. You come to our centers for, say, birth certificate, you pay the fees first, and then we process the correspondent also we pay to the franchisee. So all the three businesses are negative working capital businesses. And as you said, right, the currently it is about 15 to 16%, whereas 13 to 14% is the EBITDA margin in our digital services business. So that is the difference. But otherwise, they all are generating cash, and they all are negative working capital businesses. And as Shekhar said, they are exclusive businesses. So if we are providing a particular service, even the government cannot provide, or the embassy cannot give you a visa if we have won the contract there.
Okay. Fine. I think, Shikharji, now I want to understand one thing, like, the hotel sector, the hospitality sector, as everyone is aware, is booming post-COVID. I think everybody is traveling either for business or for leisure. Now, in your perspective, since your, business is directly related to the travel, kind of numbers, could you tell us over the next, say, 2 to 3 years, how is the business, positioned for our company? Like, can we expect, some sort of double-digit growth, numbers to continue? Because, the kind of performance we have seen in FY23 has been a blockbuster number. So, after looking at this blockbuster number, the first question which comes to mind is, can we at least sustain these numbers? So in your sense, without giving anything numerical as far as the company is concerned, but on the overall business sense, what kind of signals are you getting from the ground?
Definitely, Avinash, if you see any our industries, if you see any industry after COVID, in terms of travel, be it airlines or hotels, the demand has really, increased, and the demand is out supply. The supply is less, the demand is more. So same is happening in our visa industry. The numbers that we've achieved are still at 70% of our pre-COVID numbers, pre-COVID application volume. So there is further increase possible in our existing contracts in terms of revenue and profitability from our existing base itself. The customer demand in terms of traveling to foreign countries is much higher than before. And we see this on a sustained basis to continue. So whatever numbers that we have achieved in the last 2 quarters, definitely we wish to maintain those numbers. And further, if the market improves, and our numbers will go up further.
Okay. Now, Shekhar, from a longer term perspective, now you are currently around having a basket of around 62 countries. Now, tell me one thing, over the next, say, 2 to 3 years, can we expect that on an annual basis, 4 or 5 countries at least get added? Because I'm quite sure, your marketing efforts and your business development efforts must be going on a regular basis. So typically, over the next, say, 2 to 3 years, can we safely assume that at least another 10, 15, countries could get added? Because there's a huge scope for travel. I think people love to travel nowadays. So in that perspective, can we assume that at least BLS International will be looking at, other kind of markets and capturing other countries in their portfolio?
Definitely, Avinash, I think you are more conservative in saying that we'll add only 4 or 5 countries every year. So I think definitely we can achieve that. And if you add on top of that the bigger contracts that we are bidding for, even if we get certain market share on those contracts, the growth of the company and the bottom line of the company can be at a very different number from where it is right now. So, if we get more market share. And then on top of that, there are many governments which are outsourcing for the first time, after COVID, they've started outsourcing. So definitely, our next 2 3 years, there could be a good growth momentum in terms of the organic growth, in terms of new tenders, and then in terms of the inorganic growth also, in terms of acquisitions that we are looking at, also could lead to a further revenue and profitability growth for the company.
I think that is very reassuring, Shikharji, because the market is looking at earnings growth from your company. Company gave a very liberal bonus. The equity has moved up from 10 crores to 40 crores. So the most important question which most analysts are looking at is what is the kind of earnings growth which is expected? Because if that continues, then I think the future for BLS is even much better. So obviously we do hope that all what you have mentioned actually materializes, and of course our best wishes. But now coming to the differentiation factor, Shikharji, if you could tell us, see, when you take a new country, you enter a new market, what is it that separates you from the other two competitors? Like, business to wahi hai. But then what is the differentiation which BLS brings on the table, and what is the competitive mode of your business? Like typically winning the order is one thing, but to get repeat business from that country, ensuring that you make your money faster, in a very short turnaround time. So what could be the kind of factors which play out positively for BLS?
See, definitely technology is something that we really invest on, heavily invest on. We have a R&D department. Being an Indian company, we have the advantage of having the best class of technology in the world. The softwares that we use for appointment booking, for data capture, for biometric capture, the data quality, the data error rates are the lowest in the industry. The facial identification we are using while booking appointments. So a couple of those things I think definitely separate us from Avinash, hi, are you there? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm there. Please continue.
Yeah. So a couple of these factors I think separate us from the rest of the players. The technology that we are using, which is something new. We are all constantly upgrading our system servers, constantly introducing new things. We are quite flexible in terms of choosing locations for our offices, upgrading according to the demand, or changing locations or getting more people. So I think those are some of the factors that really play an important role for a country to award a contract to a company like us, and then consistently delivering that. We provide a very transparent access to the governments in terms of softwares that we use. They have clear access of the information that we capture. They can see at what times how many people are in our center. All this transparency really plays a big role in long-term contracts with the governments.
So I think very well articulated, Shikharji. Now tell me one thing, like when you get a new country, typically, how is the management team at that particular place, finalized? Like what are the skill sets which, you probably have brought to your management team on a micro level? In a different country or for maybe a different geography, you ensure that the right people are in the right place. So do you have any kind of special, some sort of education programs for your employees for their training, to ensure that business flows very seamlessly once you get a new market?
Correct. So see, first of all, we do have regional headquarters all spread across the world in different countries, which cater to different set of countries. And we have teams placed over there whenever there's a new rollout or operational challenge, they travel. We do conduct regular training sessions, on a consistent basis in training our teams. Definitely the profile of country managers or regional managers is somewhat, it is not only a particular role that you're looking at. You're looking at, managing finance, HR, accounts, business development, operations, everything under one role. It's more of a CEO kind of a role. So definitely, that is a skill set that we look at a regional head level. Then at an operational level, we look at a person who has operational expertise, experience in managing volumes, have taken care of issues, can manage IT infrastructure. So different kind of skill sets are needed at different roles. But we consistently, deliver training programs to our people. We have training teams deployed across different geographies for BLS, which constantly upgrade the know-how and skill set of the people on a regular basis.
Okay. Amitji, now tell me one thing, on a very broader basis, FY23 was a very good blockbuster year. Revenue was up strongly. EBITDA was also very strongly, up. Bottom line has also increased significantly. Now tell me basically what were the key specific, data points and the key reasons why we saw this blockbuster performance. Of course, the year has been benefited by a very strong inflow of tourists. Obviously you all have bagged new countries. But in your perspective, from a finance side person, what could be the reasons for this spectacular performance?
One, I would say that we started on a lower base because we were just came out of the COVID 2 years back, and thereafter we have, if you see our pre-COVID level of operations, we have actually now after 2 years have doubled that sales. There has been the additional on the value-added services which we have added. So what we have done, as Shekhar said, about 70% in volume, but our revenues have gone much higher just because we have added a lot of other optional services which we are providing to the travelers and the citizens who come to our centers, and that has added the revenue has gone up because of that. And the third, I would say, is because of the M&A we did last year, which has added about 150 crores of additional revenue in the current financial year. So these are the three major reasons for the growth which we have seen over FY22 and FY23.
You mentioned about M&A, Amitji. If you could tell us, a little broadly, because that would help us understand, what exactly was this M&A for the benefit of our viewers.
So we did this acquisition of Zero Mars in June last year, and this is the largest BC business company of SBI. So they have more than 17% of the total SBI business. And interestingly, SBI have a stake in this company of around 7%. So they
Okay.
still own the stake. We have acquired about 91% in that company, and the balance is with the ESOP which was given to the CEO. So that is we purchased. It was valued at about 135 crore enterprise value, and we purchased that company in June. This interestingly was the first company in BC which started in India and have grown over the last 2 years. They become a pioneer in this business. They have one of the best technology setup which they have done. And basically, SBI recommends others to go and follow their way of the whole processes and everything. By buying this company, our existing business has now got merged together, and we are seeing the economy of scales kick in now. And over the year, we will see the expansion in this business much faster now because of the reach we have got. And the second, we are going to now optimize on the cost. So it has
Okay.
helped us in both on the top line as well as improving our margins in this business.
So you expect a significant amount of operating leverage to play out here, isn't it?
That's it. But
So
this
Amitji, tell me one
company,
thing that, yeah, please continue.
no, I was just saying this company have presence in Leh, Ladakh, and Lakshadweep also. So it's
Okay.
covering pan India. So
Okay.
that's the advantage we are getting.
And Abhijit, this company was acquired for what? For all cash deal, or in what kind
Yeah.
of method was this acquired?
So as I said, the valuation was 135 crores. It had a debt of 15 crores. So equity value was 120, and we purchased all cash deal, the 91%, and we paid off the debt after buying the company. So that now again we are debt-free company on our overall business.
Okay, Amitji, now coming to your financials for FY23, there was a small item of rupees 2.6 crore. There was one extraordinary item. I believe that
Yeah.
was a one-time write-off. Now, first of all, if you could tell us what exactly it is, and secondly, is it going to be a one-time charge, and maybe in future it may not recur again? If you could please tell us.
Sure. So this is a one-time charge. This is one subsidiary, which is issued is equity to the promoters. The difference between the difference of 2.6 crore has been taken in the books as an expense item.
Okay. And Shikharji was also telling me that as that the technology is going to be has been a big kind of spend for the company. So on a very broader basis, in the last 2 to 3 years, what has been the money the company has spent on technology? If you could give us some idea, a very approximated number, and what are the kind of capex plans which we have? Do we have any capex plans in the first place? Because our business is asset light. So if you talk about adding another, say, 4 or 5 countries, or maybe more than that, will you require incrementally a large capex program to fund it?
Sure. So on our normal operations, our just to give a thumb rule, about 15 to 20 crore is the total capex which we have to do to invest on our IT infrastructure, software upgradation, and the offices which we are maintaining. What we need to do to sustain our existing operation level of operations. Now, this becomes very difficult to focus on to forecast the requirement in the future because it all will depend on the size of the contract. And if we have to open a new geography where we have to open offices, the cost will be different. If we have to do it in where we have an existing office, it becomes much less. We can sometimes expand our existing office and able to cater to few other contracts from the same office. So that changes on the basis of the contracts which we are going to win in the future. But the
No, but
general is about 15 to 20
no,
crores.
but then Amitji, I think looking at your track record, of the last, say, 5 to 6 years, the way you all have increased your geographical presence, I think capital allocation has been very efficiently done by the company. So, I was just wondering one more interesting, question from the analyst side, which most people want to know is normally in our business, what could be the asset turnover? Could it be very high because, the fixed investment is very less? So, in that kind of perspective, हमारे बंदे में asset turnover कितना होना चाहिए?
Actually, our asset, we as a philosophy, we have been as a strategy, we have been an asset light model, which we have been doing. As I said, we don't invest in real estate or the offices. We have been taking it on rent wherever we go. So the cost of assets have been low while working out this our strategy of expansion. But I believe our if you take out the cash out from our fixed assets and you look at only at fixed asset turnover, it will should be around 20 and it can go up to 25 to 30 times.
Okay. Okay. So I
Hmm.
think a higher
We
asset
can-
turnover will
hmm.
actually lead to a better, top line and
That's it.
profitability
That's
structure for you.
Sure.
So I
So
think fine.
currently also, if you see the on a fixed assets, our turnover is about 18 times, 18 to 20
Okay.
times.
I think very good. This is extremely, solid and, positive for your company. Shikharji,
Mm.
my last two questions to you is now company is generating a lot of cash. Although, this question, is not meant for Amitji. I just wanted to
Mm.
know, the market as well as a lot of analysts are wondering that, so much cash is being generated. So is this cash being kept as ammunition for some acquisitions which you are planning abroad? Or how will the cash be utilized? Because see, finally, if you don't utilize your cash, that also becomes a little negative in our business. So at least some thoughts on this, if you could share some data points as to what you plan to do with this cash.
See, I think I would also request Amit to add on to what I'm telling you. See, Avinash, first of all, the cash that we are generating, if you see the cash that we had on the books last year, even after the acquisition that we did in Xenomas, we have more cash again from last year. So I think it's a good problem to have, first of all. The second thing that we feel that what we are doing with the cash is that, we are seriously looking at acquisitions, bigger acquisitions now, both in the visa space and digital service space. We have already acquired two companies. We wanted to test the waters. It was the first time acquisitions that we had done. Now we know that we can digest those acquisitions. We are looking at bigger acquisitions. So definitely we want to reduce our costs going forward. So I think with the acquisitions we can combine our existing offices, leading to more profitability and revenue for the company, reduction in costs. Definitely all this bigger business that we are vying for, which we hope that we will win a certain market share, will require bigger capex than what we have invested till now, because these are much bigger contracts that we currently hold, that we're bidding for. So, setting up offices in different geographies with different specifications will require certain amount of capex. That is what, we feel that is the reason that we are holding the cash. And also, we have been declaring dividends, in the last few years, from the time the company got listed, year on year, it has been increasing. Even this time, the board recommended a 30% dividend policy. Right, Amit? Would you like to add
Yeah.
something?
That's what I was thinking of. I think was the dividend policy has changed this in the last week board meeting, wherein we have doubled the allocation for dividend. Earlier it used to be 15% of the free cash generation. Now we have made it 30% of the free cash generation in a year.
So Shikharji, my last question to you today would be that, in our business, what could be the single most, risk factor which could impact our business? Like, in every business, there are, certain risks which we normally take. COVID was one of the exceptions, but otherwise, can we assume that, is our business secular in nature and there are no major roadblocks expected, at least for the next couple of years? So anything on this, if you could comment, please.
See, definitely, whatever we have experienced in COVID, I think there can nothing be worse from that. Our revenue from our visa business was almost negligible. Still we managed to remain profitable. We had achieved profitability of 50 crores in 2019-20, and I think 2021, in spite of visa business being zero because of our other businesses like consular services, citizen services. Apart from that, I think after that things have only improved. Apart from geopolitical risk or environmental risk or natural disasters, I don't really see any big risk in this industry. Travel is pre-COVID has always been increasing year on year. Even now, we see increase in number of people who are traveling, increase in our citizen service business. So there is no major risk in terms of any geopolitical or other than the geopolitical or environmental or a natural disaster that could really change the trajectory of growth of this industry.
So, gentlemen, thank you very much for this interview. In fact, Shikharji as well as Mr. Amit, we had a very, very productive session and could understand your company's operations and prospects much better. So, viewers, if you like the video, please like and share it. And friends, we would definitely gain from this productive session. So in conclusion, Amit ji as well as Shikhar ji, thank you very much and best wishes to you and your management team and to the company.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.